you guys to engage too with us because it's way more fun when we talk. But we actually combined because of the holiday and hope you all had an amazing Thanksgiving. We combined lessons 3 and 4. If you're behind, oh well, we'll just catch back up. But just to reiterate, the twice daily is really for your sake to program into our subconscious. If you missed it before in some of our earlier discussions, we talked, that's how we learned our ABCs. That's how we learned language, that spaced repetition. That's how we learned how to tie our shoes. And so we want that spaced repetition to be the same thing that we use as we're developing belief in ourselves and as we're developing confidence in a lot of these skills that we're learning throughout the program.
So lesson 3 was on sweet and sour thoughts. And we chose to coin them sweet and sour because we didn't want to label them as negative or positive. We just want to know, we want people to feel the feeling of what it is, and some great thoughts that we could have, we would call them sweet. We think that's going to be really resonate with children too, because they can really understand that, as opposed to like a positive negative situation. So we want to start off with just sharing some sweet thoughts that you've had or that you are thinking right now. And does anybody want to go first?
Well, you just saw my sweet one.
Yes. Love it. And see, this is one of the things with this lesson. If you listen to it, we want to understand what thoughts are, right? So those of you that are parents, those of you that are educators, those of us that are humans, we were never really taught what thoughts are. And thoughts are energy, and energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can always change form, right? And so the reason behind this lesson in particular is to understand that we don't have to believe every thought that we think. Thoughts can move, and we're going to show you some strategies today that are things that you can embody and also things that you can use with your children. But many of us grew up and we bought into every thought that came through. Well, that's true. Well, that's true. Well, that's true. And then what happens is a belief is just a thought we keep thinking. So what happens? We ingrain it more and more and more because we think those same things. They're repetitive. 80% of our thoughts are just repeated from previous thoughts. So the power in this is we don't have to judge them or label them. We don't have to say those are good or those are bad. But what we can do is choose it. Wait a second. I am not my thoughts. I can choose which ones I want to hold on to and which ones I want to release. If it tastes sour has it has a physiological response, right? And so we want to know that our thoughts, when they say thoughts are things, it actually creates a response in our body. And sweet thoughts, we know how it feels, right? Like Cindy, when she said, my daughter, her face lit up. She said, you saw it. That thought created a physiological response in her body. It was joy. Yeah. So this is what's so cool when we learn that we actually get to choose. We can choose. Now, what happens for a lot of us is if we have sour thoughts, we try to resist it. And you've probably heard the saying, what we resist persists. We don't have to fight our thoughts. We can just bless and release the ones we don't want to keep and learn to pull in the ones that we do. And so again, we'll show you some strategies in this lesson. So, Rye, what's one of your sweet thoughts before we move on to sour? I want to hear from you too. What's a sweet thought?
I'm really proud of the work, how when you just put it out there, it just kind of aligns and it goes, and there's a radiance in my heart that just keeps growing more and more with it. So it radiates out to others. So
that's it.
A lot of sweet thoughts you can attribute to like affirmations. So I am this, I feel this. And, there's a whole scientific background with affirmations that, it truly works. If you embody those thoughts, you will feel that way. So, and even when you're not feeling so great, I just had this conversation downstairs with my husband. He just had this look on his face and I said, smile, your whole body will change. Everything you feel right now, even you had a long day will feel better if you just smile and feel that feeling of the happiness of sitting with your children at the dinner table.
Yeah.
So it works.
It really does. And that's what we really want to develop throughout this program with you guys and your children. Is many of us were taught to live from the outside in. If this happens, I'm happy. When this happens, I'm happy. And happiness is truly a state of being. And also with the sour thoughts and teaching these things, we also don't want to negate negative feelings, right? Because we're humans. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we are going to experience sour thoughts. We don't need to judge them. We are going to experience feelings that don't feel amazing in our bodies. But when we learn a lot of these tools that we'll be doing together through this journey, we realize how much power that we have, that we actually can live from the inside out, and that we can choose our state of being a lot more than we think that we can, right? Okay, so what are some tricks that we can do to start turning sour thoughts to sweet thoughts? Again, we took a lot of stuff and a lot of ideas, and we made it very, very simple so that these are easy, applicable tools that you can integrate into your everyday busy lives, and also things that you can teach your children. So one day they will realize that all along they've had their superpowers inside of them and that they can use these as well. So the first one is think. So have you guys ever seen this before?
Mm-hmm.
The think? Okay, cool. So we get to question our thoughts. So let's think of a sour thought that we've had. Who wants to give a sour thought that you've had before or that your children have had?
I will.
Yeah.
So through all of this grieving process, Aaliyah never likes it when I get upset. It always upsets her, and then she doesn't really know how to process that part. So the day that was my mom's funeral, they had to take my brother to the hospital by squad. And I got a little bit upset, and she came down and she said, well, you're only crying because you just want attention, which is like the furthest thing. Anybody that knows me knows that I don't want anybody to see me cry. I don't want anybody to know that I'm crying. I want to be able to handle it all on my own. And so it took me a while to get her to calm down and to be able to talk about her emotions, that no, I don't really want the attention, but she just said those mean things because she's so overwhelmed with seeing me upset that she just doesn't know how to process it. So
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And we can so relate to that. So maybe what would be your belief around that, or the story that you're telling yourself around that?
Well, that she is only 7 years old and has no clue how to handle grief.
Yeah.
She also thinks along the line that I'm going to be the next one to die. And that really scares her. So, I actually used the flip lid with her, where I showed her this, and like when you flip your lid, it does this, and it can't protect your emotions or your heart. So we need to do this. And she totally like got it and understood. So my turning the sour into, like what she said was really, really mean. And she only said it to hurt me, but it's because she doesn't know how to process her emotions yet.
Yeah.
So by telling her the flip lid, and that I flip my lid sometimes too, and that it's okay. And she said, well, why am I so broken? I'm like, you're not broken at all. Your brain is just wired a little bit differently. So I was able to think and like walk her through that. So that was what my good out of the bad was in that.
I love that. Okay, so a couple of things here that you might find helpful, and I'll make this story very quick, but I tell it often. My greatest teacher, I taught for 13 years, and my greatest teacher ever was a student in my class. It makes me cry every time, but she really struggled. She came in mid-year when I had like my whole classroom was all figured out, and she came in and had emotions. Wah! She was angry. She was mad. She, just projected out her inside world. So I literally like had a notebook, like try this, check, that didn't work, check, that didn't work. And so one day I just wasn't being a teacher. I was being a real human. And so I would have her, like, I had a little feelings place in the corner in the hallway, like where she could read her feelings books and write her feelings journal and have her stuffed animals, and nothing worked. And so one day I went out there and I was like, can you just help me help you? I'm like, I am trying everything. I just want to help you. And she's like, I just miss my dad. And whatever came over me that day, it was shortly after I had lost my dad. And I just started bawling. And I said, you know what? I miss my dad too, but every day I want to make him very proud. And I know how you feel. And she literally gave me the biggest hug. And that was her
Aw.
last fit, the very last fit. We cried together that day. And so I call her my greatest teacher, because what she taught me was she didn't want somebody to have it all figured out. She wanted a human that was going through emotions too. And
Yes.
so from that point on, it changed the way I taught, the way I led. Like, they just want to know that they're not broken for having emotions. They don't need fixed. They're just having human emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I think the best thing we can do as adults is, like you in this, like, I'm going to be going through this grieving journey with you, because this is what we do. And when we love people, like, this is part of it. And so we're going to find ways to honor her. We're going to cry sometimes when we need to cry. And we're going to just go through this journey together, you and I, because I don't have it all figured out, but I do know we're going to make it through this. And we're going to use tools that are going to help us. So, like, this is one. So maybe, like, let's use the example that I'm broken. She said, I'm broken. So let's say, wait a minute. Let's use our think tool and see if that's true, or see if that's fact. Is it true that you're broken? And you can even be silly, like, I don't see anything broken on you. There's nothing broken. Is it helpful to believe that you're broken? No, that's not helpful. Is it
Right.
inspiring? Does that make you feel better to believe that you're broken?
Mm-mm.
No, it doesn't make you feel better. Is it necessary? Is this something that's going to help you be your best version of yourself if you believe that you're broken? No. Kind. Would you tell somebody that you loved that and you really cared about them that they're broken? No. So if we did the think thing, I think we can let that thought go now. That's a sour thought. We're not going to keep it anymore because it's not fact. And so we can do this with anything. So instead of her buying into the belief I'm broken, we just debunked it, right? So these
Yeah.
are tools then they have to carry with them the rest of their lives. These are their superpowers. They get left out on the playground, something happens that they don't like, they have a bad day, they get an F on a spelling test, whatever. They can learn that to use the think model.
I like that.
So that's one. And then the second is go fish. So we say that we can think of our thoughts just like when we play the game Go Fish. And actually in our C.A.P.E superpower kit, we've made our own version of Go Fish. But you can take all the thoughts and put them on cards, or you can just use your mind, your mental faculty, your imagination. And so say, okay, let's say all the thoughts that you're thinking right now. I'm not good enough. I just cry for attention, And then we choose, we can keep the ones we want to keep, or we can go fish for a better thinking thought. So this is like, again, what our intention here is to separate ourselves from our thoughts. We do not have to believe every thought we think. We can separate ourselves from those thoughts. Go fish. I don't want to keep that one. Maybe a card says, I'm worthy. I like how that feels. I'm going to keep that one. So that's a strategy that you can use. So if she's saying things, or even you're thinking things, literally write it down in a journal. Which ones do I want to keep? Which ones do I want to go fish for higher feeling thoughts? And we can always find something that is a step higher from the last thought that we were thinking, right?
Okay.
So I'm not worthy. You can literally cross out not and turn it into am, right? Those are two thoughts that are going to have completely different feelings.
Yes.
And make our beliefs different. So that's strategy 2. And strategy 3 is so simple. It's actually a practice. We did not make this one up. This is a practice that a lot of really amazing leaders lead, but it's no, thank you. That's not part of my belief system. So a thought comes in, again, what we resist persists. So if we have a sour thought that we don't love, if we're like, oh, why do I think that thought that I keep thinking, we're actually giving energy to that thought. But if a thought comes in and we don't love that thought, we can say, thank you, but that's not part of my belief system. Next. And you'll find that you actually begin to feel like the master of your thoughts. You're like, I don't want to keep that one. Thank you. That's not part of my belief system. Again, we don't have to accept as true every thought that comes.
Yes, and something that I always had, I always had to think that through, like we're not our thoughts. But then I heard someone say thoughts are not facts. And that hit me in a different way where I said, you're right. Someone says something to you that's untrue, and we can choose to make it part of our belief system or not. So thoughts are not facts. That was a huge one for me.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are. Lesson 4 is paradigms. Were you able to listen to this lesson?
I was not yet.
Okay, Ryan?
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is going to be interesting. Do you know what a paradigm is?
I'm seeing like it's a process. I don't know. I'm definitely seeing a triangle in my mind, but it's a process of how we go about something, and then the shift, like if there's a shift, it goes to the other side of I don't know. That's what
That's what you envision?
Yeah, that's what I'm envisioning. Like it's like one side and then the second side.
That's interesting.
It's interesting.
So we didn't know what they were either. We learned what they are, and now it pretty much guides our whole lives, because your paradigms are every program that's in your subconscious mind. So just like Angie mentioned before, we learned how to talk, we learned how to walk. You didn't choose the language that you were taught as a child. And, all of these things are now automatic. So we have programs for everything, brushing our teeth, how we treat others. And these are all programs that we get from others, typically when we're growing up, our environment, our school, our family. So they really control, a 95% of what you do all your habits.
Yeah.
So the beautiful thing about paradigms, once you learn them and understand them, is that we can shift paradigms. So a program that maybe was in your subconscious that isn't serving you, you can change it with repetition. So that's really what a paradigm is. And we will get much more into this. This is just kind of a introductory lesson on what paradigms are. So Angie is going to tell you a story that you might be able to relate to.
Yeah. And before I get to that, I do want to say this because, we all have paradigms. It's not like, oh, we've been studying this stuff. We no longer we will have paradigms forever. It's part of it. But what's so cool is when we become aware, we get to choose which ones we want to keep. So, I'm for both of you, like, grief. Maybe we watch someone go through grief in like a really negative way. And so we adopted like this belief around how grief has to be or look, or the way we were fed when we were growing up. I know, Ryan, you're on this journey, this really big wellness journey, but it's because your kids they're being programmed by this wellness journey that you're doing. So it's like, that's an intentional program that you're creating. So it's really fun. But like a lot of us, we weren't taught that. There are programs that maybe our parents gave to us that are excellent, and we're like, yes, I want to keep this program, or a program that we got from school, and we're like, yes, I want to keep this program. And then maybe there are ones that we're like, I'm about to change things up a little bit. And so that's why this is really fun, because you really do, and it's a play on words with being the superhero of your own life. But when you realize the power that you have, you literally are the superhero of your life. So in this story, I'm trying to make it fast, but there was this lady that had this big, huge pot, and she had this roast, and she cut both ends off of the roast. And so she one of the girls is like, Mom, why do you cut both ends off the roast? She's like, I don't know. My mom did it. So they go to Mom. Why do you cut off both ends off the roast? She's like, I don't know. My mom did it. Go to Grandma, go to great grandma. Why do you cut both ends off the roast? And she was like, oh, because we only had a pot this big and it's the only way it would fit. And it's like, all of these years, no one questioned why they did that. They just did it. And so it's a really great example of how many of us do. Like, why do we do the things we do? Well, because that's the way it was always done. And so this is a great opportunity as we're going about paradigms, and you're going to start catching yourself. And this is the fun of this journey. You're going to do something just out of habit, and you're going to ask you'll be like, why do I do that? You probably get out of bed with the same foot. You probably do the same things that you've always done. And so this is really an invitation to be like, what do I do? What do I now too? Because you both are parents. So you're teaching your children things. Now it's like, you'll be very intentional. What programs do I want them to receive? And which programs are we going to change? And then also giving them the superpower to know that they don't have to do, all the same programs as well. So it's really just a very cool awareness.
Nice.
Isn't it cool?
Yes.
I really needed to hear that. I'm going to have to watch the slides or listen to because I know here, like, I would love to change the paradigm, but I have to be very like sneaky about it and do my own routine and just live in my own truth, because I do see that it will shift, but I've said when it shifts, it's gonna shift.
I love that so much, Ryan.
So do I. I feel like we should use that.
I know.
I don't know where that's the image I see. I see a triangle and then I see the back of the triangle, but there is definitely a groove here, and I'm really trying to move the groove.
Ooh, move the groove.
Yes, move the groove.
Good.
Paradigm shift, Ryan, move the groove. Okay, you're getting quoted for this. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
very cool. Yeah, I love that. So
No, sorry. I was going to say that culture is paradigm. So, there's cultures in businesses, there's cultures in our homes, there's cultures in schools, and those are basically paradigms. They're group habit. So growing up, the way we celebrated the holidays might look totally different than the way we celebrate them now, or we might have carried over everything from when we were children and carry on those same traditions. So one thing in my household growing up, my mom had the ceramic tree with the little knobs.
Yes.
Had nativity scenes everywhere and all these things. So when I got married and got my house, well, guess what she bought me? She bought me the ceramic tree and about like every year a new nativity scene. Well, that's not how I decorate for Christmas. That's just not. I'm religious to a certain extent, but I don't need Jesus all over my house. So, it's funny because growing up, I didn't think anything of it. It's just what we did. We had the manger, we had all that. We had, tinsel on the tree, which was static everywhere. And it would and I hated it. I was like, why are we using this tinsel? And I'm never going to use this tinsel. But so the way I have changed my traditions in my home, I've taken maybe one or two of the traditions that we celebrated, in my house. And, I celebrate my own way with my own little family. And, my decorations are different. We don't do the Advent candles. Like there's so many differences because of my beliefs and how I want to raise my family in celebrating the holidays. So it's interesting because we want to know how you guys celebrated your holidays and if you celebrated holidays, because some people don't at all, and what the comparison between then and now and the similarities and the differences.
Yeah, and what's so cool is there's no right or wrong. It is 6:30, so we'll let you guys go, but just knowing that there's no right or wrong, like anything, if there are traditions that you love that your family did, good, keep those. If there are paradigms that your parents gave you or your teachers gave you or whatever, good, keep those. And then if there are ones that you're like, you know, I don't know why I got that or how I got that, but I'm so ready to change. And this comes up a lot around financial beliefs too. Like Renee was saying, everything is a paradigm. The way we eat, the way we speak, like none of us chose our language. Everything is a paradigm. But the secret sauce here is our awareness of it. It's like, okay, if we adopted a belief around, well-being or finances or whatever, we don't have to carry those on into the next space of our life, the next generation, the next anything. So we just want to invite you, if you guys can share in our Facebook group, really participate in this. Like, what are some paradigms that you're going to take with you? And what are some paradigms that you're ready to release now that you're learning this stuff? So we appreciate you guys so much. Feel free to stay on. It's 6:30, so we'll pop off, but feel free to stay on. We can talk anything through, and feel free to pop off and if you feel complete. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that I was able to do this one tonight.
Oh, we were so happy that you're here.
Yeah. Do you want to stop recording, Renee?
Yeah.
I know something of a